What is the name of that show that was just on? It was sort of a modern day version of Upstairs, Downstairs. It was the Manor. Downton Abbey. Thank you so much. She always knows the answers. You're on my trivia team next time. There we go. Downton Abbey. Downton Abbey and before, in the time period, I know I have a go at people from the Victorian age. The Victorian age was fantastic for all of its innovations. But if you went back to the 1850s and you took the landed gentry from England and then you kind of compared them, a family of the landed gentry to a family in, let's say, coal country in Wales, you would notice differences. Quick back. Dogs' noses are 100,000 times more sensitive than humans. Their sense of smell. I don't know how they can stand to be around us. But that tremendous sense of smell, look, if you are a human being and you have a sense of smell that's 2 or 3 times better than average, you'd be working for a perfume company in France. No kidding. 100,000 times is a whole different world. Dogs experience like 80-85% of their world through smell. They could be blind or deaf. As long as they got their sense of smell, they can tell who's in the room. They can tell if that's a male or female in the room. They can tell how old they are. They can tell if you're sick. They can tell if you're happy. They can tell if you're scared. All through that sense of smell. Human beings, on the other hand, we're visual. Our main input, not to say the hearing and senses of smell aren't important, they are, but we are a mainly visual processing animal. So I go back to the Welsh family in 1850 and the landed gentry in England. What are you going to notice about the kids? And we look back and we think, these people were they were awful, so unprogressive. You know, I honestly think those rich people thought they were better. Well, let me tell you what they would have seen. Now, I'm not justifying bad viewpoints of the world. They would have seen that their kids were taller, that their kids were 5 to 10 IQ points smarter, their kids lived longer, their skin was better, their eyes were brighter, and they had a full set of teeth. And they would have noticed all of that and said, well, we must be better. And we all know that that's no access to a doctor, spending all of your day in a mine with very little sunlight, breathing in coal dust, and a terrible diet, and then being worked literally to death by the time you're 40 years old. So our eyes deceive us, but I don't want anybody to think today that we're not ruled by the same things. Beautiful people, and of course this church is full of them. Let's just say, for instance, beautiful people, right? Confederation was what, 1867? There has not been a single beautiful woman get a speeding ticket in this country since 1867. Because all she's got to say to the guy cop, if it is a guy, who walks up to the side and go, oh my God, do you work out? He's like, because men are done that way. The answer is no. They'll say, of course, yeah, I work out. And listen, just keep the speed down. I'm not going to write you a ticket this time. Because guys are dumb. We judge on what we see. And I know that we're way more aware of it today than we ever have been. But it still lingers. Do you know what makes beautiful people, by the way? The biggest thing that is a contributor to being perceived as beautiful, symmetry of your face. If your ears are exactly aligned and your eyes are exactly the same shape and aligned, you will be perceived as beautiful, even if you have weird features. Here's my biggest example of this. You're going to love this one. So Princess Diana Spencer, who I'm very neutral about. I wasn't a big fan, nor did I dislike her. It was sort of a neutral, right? But when she died, oh my God, the outpouring of grief in England was extreme. You remember the funeral? I had to look it up. It was September 6th, 1997, right? And they had to stop that hearse like 10 times because people were throwing flowers onto the hearse. And there was this tremendous outpouring of grief. Did anybody, I can remember distinctly turning to somebody to say, you know, it's ironic. Sorry, this isn't part of the sermon. This is me venting. It's ironic that the very people who were royal watchers bought the rag magazines that paid the paparazzi that chased her in Paris and led directly to her death. I don't know if you caught on that, but that struck me that day, right? But anyway, that's not what I want to talk about. A huge outpouring of grief. I'm going to ask you a question. If you know the answer, don't say it out loud. Just raise your hand. I want to see how. Somebody else died the day before her funeral, September 5th, 1997. Do you know who that was? Who was it?
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa of Calcutta died the day before her funeral, and no one outside of India noticed. Because I'm not saying Diana was a terrible person, don't hear that. But Mother Teresa of Calcutta versus Princess Diana and the impact they had on the world, there's no comparison. But that entire week and a half was Diana, 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 Diana. I saw maybe 5 seconds. Now, the people in India were huge in their grief. But in the West, I saw maybe 5 minutes of coverage. And I saw documentary after documentary on Diana. Why? Because Diana was a beautiful young princess. And Princess Teresa was a tiny, not very attractive Albanian woman. That is exactly why that coverage was different. Exactly. Had it been reversed in age, in perceived attractiveness, it would have been Mother Teresa, Mother Teresa, Mother Teresa. So if we think that we've kind of outgrown this view of the world, I want to say something. This isn't a political statement. Justin Trudeau was elected because he was a tall, good-looking guy. Or was it because his 2 years part-time teaching drama was the part that swayed your vote? Carney, who's also a Liberal, eminently qualified to be. So I'm not talking Liberal, Conservative, NDP, I'm not talking that. Justin Trudeau was elected because he looked good. Sorry, I just took the air out of the room. I was like, oh, political statements from the pulpit. What I'm trying to say is this, that in the past, especially in the past, but also today, we have to be careful of what we see being the arbiter of what we feel and how we judge. Because we do it. We really do. When we look here at this reading from John, you have this man, and I can't overemphasize this. Around this pool, what would happen was every once in a while, air would escape into this pool and the waters would bubble. The feeling was that the angels were stirring up the pool, and if you got yourself into it while that was happening, you would be healed. And for years, this guy was 38 years like this, trying to get into the pool, but he was so lame he couldn't crawl there fast enough to beat everyone else. Jesus saw this, came, said, "Do you want to be made well?" And Jesus heals him. But the viewpoint at the time was that people who were blind, lame, paralyzed, who were deaf, who were dumb, couldn't speak, it was because you had done something sinful or your parents had done something sinful. You deserved it. Why do people feel that way? Because we like an ordered world. Why are people fascinated by serial killers? And we are. Because we don't understand them. And when you don't understand something, it's sort of like a mathematician with an equation you can't quite, or she can't quite fix. They fixate on it. They have to solve it, and we try to solve these problems in our head, and we can't. We just keep spinning on them. And here, when people looked at this arbitrary lameness, blindness, deafness, people being hurt in accidents, they had to make sense of it. So they would say, it has to be because he sinned. Otherwise, it wouldn't happen. And the apostles themselves said to Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents? Neither. This is a decoupling. This is so important. And it's important for ourselves. Why? Because the physical and the spiritual are two separate things. And yes, they have correlation in the world to an extent. But it's one of the things as Christians we're called to overlook. As a Christian, you can't do your Christian duty, and I'm going to say the word duty, if you can't overlook ugliness. People who work in hospices, just up here, up the road, right? People go into a hospice, they're not coming out. People who work in a hospice are called to do that work. If they're not called to do it, it's extremely demoralizing. But if you have a gift, if you have a charism to do that sort of work, what are you going to see? This isn't Thomas the Tank Engine or some romantic fairy tale. When people suffer and die in real life, it is, what's the word? Ugly. Viciously ugly. And as Christians, we have to be able to see through that to the person suffering. And to see them as a child of God always. This is going to sound mercenary, but for myself, that was a bit of a... You know what the challenge was? The smells. The smells of a sick person. Urine, feces. I had a hard time with that when I was first starting out. And you know, somebody suggested something to me, and I thought about it, and from then on it was different. I had to grow. I had to grow past that. And it was, try to see them as kids. Because that's... You watch the Titanic movie, right? This is going to sound awful. I can watch adults die hundreds at a time, and really I'm like, I'm okay. But if a dog or a child dies, I'm like, okay, that's just too much. Why would they do that? It's terrible. I can't. I don't want to watch. And right away, the mood changes. Well, picture them as those kids. That's who they are. When we say children of the Lord, that's a literal thing. We're all God's children. People don't deserve to die the way they do sometimes. Pancreatic cancer? No one does. I don't care what you did in your life. Nobody deserves that. Nobody. But as Christians, Christ does it here, and he does it throughout the gospel. It's overlook poverty. It's overlook ugliness. It's overlook the things that the world judges you on, how rich you are and how successful you've been. And we do it today. And it's because, like I said, we like to have things make sense. And when they don't, it bothers us on a very, very visceral, fundamental level. Why is that guy homeless? Wow. Because he's a drunk. Because he's a drug addict. You know, like 85% of the time, it's because of untreated, undiagnosed mental illness. It's a moral failing. You should just listen. A lot of people feel that way. They deserve it. They're just not trying hard enough. You know how many people think mental illness isn't an actual thing? It's just the person being lazy or attention seeking, and if they just decided to flip the light switch, they'd be good to go. Or the advice offered is, you know what? I know you're hugely depressed, you can barely get out of bed. You know what you need to do is just get a job. You just need to get out there and get a job. And I mean, a lot of people, well-meaning, will say stuff like that because to them, the world makes sense. If you buckle down and you try harder and you give it the old college try, you'll be able to overcome anything. The fact that that isn't true really bothers people. So I know I've gone on too long. The biggest challenge for us as Christians is to look through the ugliness and the difficulties and the tragedy in the world, to always see the light of the person suffering those things. And to see them as children of God and fellow brothers and sisters everyone's just trying to get home. We're all just trying to get home. And so our ability to overcome that is extremely important to us.